This is Modern Homesteading. Before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to all of my subscribers in the UK. Over the last couple of years, I have attracted a really strong following. I'm not sure why that is, but I want to admit that I am a huge Anglophile and I just love almost all things British. We don't have a television, but we rent DVDs and videos of British television programs, whether it be dramas, crime dramas, or comedies, and almost exclusively things that air on the BBC or the UK. It's just so great. Just the nuances and the sense of humor and just how smart it's written. I can only imagine what you guys must think of us Yanks when you watch American network television. I mean, it's so horrible. It's just so horrible compared to the cleverness and the wittiness of what you guys are used to. One thing that I've also adopted is drinking of tea, which is a huge thing in the UK, or it used to be. I read a lot of old English literature, so I don't know if that's still the case there now. I hope to visit one of these days. But I like to have a hot cup of tea waiting for me at the end of the day, especially on cold days like today. So I'm going to get the kettle put on here on the fire and have that waiting for us, and then we'll get back to the series. I hope you'll indulge me. I want to talk about a couple tools really quick. One thing that I like to do is to test my skills when I go out into the forest with very minimalist equipment and minimalist gear and really basic stuff, not a bunch of high-tech things like stoves that take propane, those things are nice to have a place, but it's nice to work with a basic set of tools and see how it works, see what you're lacking, see what you're not lacking. I've chosen, these are what I'll call my 7 things that I could be dropped off in the forest. In this area, this applies to me in my area. If you live in Arizona or the hardwoods of the Northeast, things are going to be different. But for me, these are my 7 things that I could get by pretty comfortably. First is a cooking pot. This is made by the Zebra company, and these are the best I've ever found. It's just a small little, I don't know, maybe a couple quarts there, quart and a half. And then I have a little titanium cup that I keep. It's nice to have a designated cup. And then, of course, I've got my tea bags in there, which will use this to boil water. It's nice to have something you can cook in. Next thing I'm going to choose is choose a small axe of some sort. This needs no introduction. It is the Grand Force Brook Small Forest Axe. It's the one that I like the best. And what do you need? What would I choose, or what would recommend? It's got to be an axe that can be carried on a belt, and it's not too big. You don't want something you have to have in your hand all the time. So whatever you choose, make sure it's something you have in a belt. A great accompaniment to this is a small folding saw. You cannot cut very cleanly with this, and when you need to notch and do different things, there really isn't anything out there, as far as I'm concerned, that can really compare with the size and just being perfect as the Baco Laplander. This is just an invaluable little tool. And then in addition to that, you need a good fixed blade knife. Not a folding blade knife, but a really strong fixed blade knife. I've taken to carrying my knife on a carabiner, and I didn't think I would like it at first, but I realized that I like it better because when you're taking a knife, when you're working out here and you're using it a lot, you're in and out, maybe 100 times an hour, you need to be able to get to the sheath really easy. And what this does is having this hanging a little bit lower just makes it more accessible. When you have clothes and coats on, when you have this on your belt, you really almost have to pull away clothing, and it's difficult to sheath it in and out when you're doing so many times. Some guys will even choose to hang these around their neck, and that's probably not a bad option either, but the carabiner drops it down low enough where you can really get at it. What type of knife do you need for a survival situation? Something really, really strong, something that's thick in the spine. Something like a traditional bushcraft knife is really good for this type of thing because it has a Scandinavian grind that makes it really durable. If you're twisting or you're hacking, it's a blade that's super strong because it gets so fat so quickly, and then you can baton it and full tang, and there's no tougher knife than something like this right here. So that's the type of knife, something fixed blade and something really strong. Next, I'm going to take a compass. I like, for an overall compass, the best I've ever used is the Suntu, it's a Finnish company, is the MC2G. It's got an inclinometer on it. I like that, and so many functions. It's a great compass, and it's really durable. Next thing I'm going to have of my 7 things is some cordage, some paracord or something, because it's almost impossible to duplicate rope in the field if you don't have it. I'm going to have a little bit more than this, but definitely some rope. And then, of course, a fire steel. You know, why a fire steel over matches or a lighter? Because it's just reliable. This is all about robustness. This is all about things that are just not going to fail, that you can really count on. And what makes a fire steel different than waterproof matches or a lighter is it's always going to work regardless of the conditions. You could drop it in the water, it could be soaking in rain, and you're always going to have the ability to make sparks for a fire. So that's why the fire steel. And then next is going to be some way to hold water. So, you know, that's difficult to duplicate also. And your water container, I wouldn't recommend plastic. I like to have something that's aluminum or steel so you can heat it if you need to. You can put this and bury this in the coals. Plastic obviously is not going to work. So something that's metal, whether it's stainless steel or it's aluminum, it is definitely best. So those are my 7 things. I would like to hear your 7 things. What you would change. If I could add a couple more to it, I'm not including firearms in this, but I would definitely want a firearm. A 22 would be my choice if I could just have one thing. A 22, like a Ruger 1022, would be ideal, and something to be waterproof. So I'd like something, whether it was a space blanket or a drum liner or some Visqueen or something that I could waterproof a shelter with, because that's something that's really difficult to do, is to waterproof if you find yourself in the rain. So if I was to expand on that, I'll give you an expansion. So give me your 7 things, and then the 2 alternates. If you could have 2 more, what would they be? So that would be mine. It would be a firearm and a plastic or drum lighter of some sort. So to get our water boiling for our tea, we're going to need a green sapling. We want green, not dry, because it won't burn so easily. And we're going to take our hatchet and cut off a little notch, a little chisel grind on it, just like the end on that, just like it. Next, we're going to need about a 12-inch piece from another green sapling for 2 stakes. Nothing works better for a workbench than an old stump. So clean off all the branches here. Take your saw and cut this in half. Now with your axe, put a point on each end. Now we're going to take our sapling with the chisel grind there, lay it over a log or stick, whatever we can find, so that the tip of it, if you were to drop a rope straight down, would be in the center of the fire. The base of your sapling, we're going to secure it with our 2 tent stakes, crisscross, so it doesn't flip up on us. So our next sapling needs to be a couple feet long. On the bottom of this piece, we want to be sure to leave the bottom branch, or we're going to use this to hang our kettle. The rest of the branches can be stripped off. So taking our stick where our kettle's going to hang, we're going to measure it where it hangs just over the coals of the fire, make a mark right here with our thumb, and we're going to cut a notch. Now we're ready to put the kettle on. So you can see here now we have some adjustability with our notches. Cheers. Rush the Jim Guthrie. Jim Guthrie, native Oregon. Rush Led Zeppelin wrote, I love the series. Tom Bombadil. Bombadil comes to mind. Bombadil. Mega Tuba. Well, Wheeler wrote, that's not a grand for